Welcome everyone for the very first meeting of the Institute of International Finance Emerging Payments Association Global Payments Forum. The IIF and EPA have jointly created this forum with the aim of contributing to achievement of the G20 objectives to facilitate cheaper, faster, more inclusive and more transparent cross-border payment transactions, including remittances, as set out in the G20 roadmap in October 2020. The forum is expected to provide a key engagement mechanism between industry representatives, i.e. you, and the global standard setters that are responsible for delivering the G20 objectives in partnership with the private sector. It will also provide a space for industry representatives to share experience around emerging good practices or developing standards and identifying common barriers of challenges to enhancing cross-border payments and how to address them. The roadmap contains detailed timelines across the range of topics dealt with out to 2024. The roadmap will be kept under review and is subject to change after 2021. We hear too often about fees being 5 to 7% on cross-border payments, about it taking 12 to 18 months for an exotic currency to be set up at the bank, about latent fees on transactions, and that some payments taking days and even weeks to complete. In a world where cross-border payments are needed to be working better than ever as we rise from the pandemic, and where user expectations are higher than ever, the need to seek improvements in speed and reliability, cost, transparency, inclusiveness is more urgent than ever. My name is John Ryan. I'm the Director General of Emerging Payments Association Asia Policy, and I'm joined by Co-Director Generals Tony Craddock in the UK and also Camilla Bullock in Asia. Also on the line, our close partners in this new forum, the Institute of International Finance. We've got Brad Carr, Lawrence White, and also Conan French. Without their close collaboration, this event doesn't happen today. So I am going to ask Brad Carr to provide a welcome as well. Please, Brad.
Well, thanks, John, and I'll be very quick. Obviously, thanks to you and to everybody at the EPA team. And indeed, the IIF's delighted to partner with the EPA in this important forum. Across our respective memberships, we represent, I think, the full spectrum of the ecosystem's participants. And this forum, I think, is going to represent a great way for all of the industry to come together in helping to tackle some of the really key issues that the likes of the FSB and the CPMI have called out. Thank you to all of you for being with us, especially those in challenging time zones. I can see that Chad Harper of Visa has joined at the ugly time of 4:30 in the morning in San Francisco, so I'll never complain ever again with that sobering reminder. And please do give us feedback about how we can make sure that this forum functions best for you. So many thanks all, and please, John, I'll let you continue.
Great, thanks, Brad. And I would like to extend that thank you to the co-chairs who are here with us today on the line. And the three global co-chairs that we have with us, we've got Rich Clow, who's covering the Americas and also the banking sector. We've got Stephen Granger, who's covering cards, SWIFT, UK and EMEA, and Aditi Shalakapokar, who's covering FinTech and the APAC region. If I just quickly ask the co-chairs to briefly just say hello and perhaps just let us know what their expectations for this forum event is. So Aditi, do you want to kick off?
Of course. Hello, everyone. So excited for this. I know I'm representing FinTech and I'm firmly FinTech, but I've spent a large part of my career in banking, investment banking, trading, and that taught me something very important with respect to what technology can do and how also technology can discriminate. I've seen transactions worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which were custodial in nature, go across in seconds, and I've seen retail transactions struggle on those exact same fronts. And I think for me, this forum is personally so important, and that's also my expectation from it, is that if there's anything that technology can equalize, can make more efficient, there's no excuse to not do it. And we have the most powerful people in this room who can possibly make that happen. So yeah, let's hold ourselves up to a very, very high standard here. And thank you so much again for attending.
And Rich, would you like to introduce and say hello?
Great. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rich Clow. I'm currently at Bank of America. I lead emerging payments and strategy. I have a deep history of over 20 years in banking. Good time there was at Citibank. And I kind of come at this opportunity both from a background in technology as well as in a current role around looking to disrupt, the different types of user experiences and payment capabilities, working across all of the related aspects, whether it be partnering with fintechs or whether it be working with regulators. So I really look forward to rolling up my sleeves, and we're going to need a lot of engagement. So I encourage everyone to speak up. And thanks, John and team, for arranging this.
Yeah, thanks for keeping that focus on the engagement. Absolutely key. And Stephen, last but not least,
there is huge friction in terms of moving money across the world. And I think what excites me most about this is the opportunity to find a way to be able to engage between the private sector and the public sector on finding answers to many of those solutions. And I think, the private sector has done a very good job today in trying to find new ways of being able to solve for these pain points. But those new ways of doing things will only be made better if we can find a way to be able to collaborate and move this story forward and find ways to realistically, remove those friction points together. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and I look forward to the conversation during the rest of the day. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. So just to give you some housekeeping details, there is the comments feature on the site where you can, it's a chat feature where you can pass some comments, and also the Q&A to ask some questions. Please feel free to use these as we go through. Once we hear the presenter speaking in about 30 minutes time, you'll be asked to complete a few polling questions, and we're using the Slido link. So again, have a look in the chat. I posted that earlier. So just get that ready on your laptop or your phone. We will then, after that, we'll go into, we answer 3 survey questions. We'll go into facilitated workshops, and they will last for 20 minutes. And it's really about discussing the questions, but we'll give you more details about that shortly. Today, we ask you to think about the improvements and the opportunities in cross-borders. So we want really to, as we say, to roll up our sleeves, to use Rich's expression earlier. The inaugural event here is really setting the tone for how we go forward in this engagement mechanism. So now I'm going to pass it over to Kieran Murphy from Financial Stability Board, and Thomas Lamars will come on after Kieran. So over to you, Kieran, please.
Thank you very much, John. If you just hit the slides. Thank you very much. I noticed I said I'm in Geneva, but I'm actually in Basel, so it's a lovely day here anyway. So I just want to talk, I'm very grateful obviously to have the opportunity to speak to you about the roadmap, because it's very important that we speak to groups like this to bring this work forward. And I'm sure many of you have seen the roadmap that was published in October last year. It's a large amount of building blocks, large amount of work that's going on in this field. So this kind of outreach is very, very useful for us as well. So the FSB in the past has pursued a number of initiatives for enhancing cross-border payments, which was published in October 2020 and endorsed by the G20, aims to go further, and it aims to address the issues that have been identified in a comprehensive way. So as you can see here, cross-border payments have faced 4 basic challenges: high cost, low speed, limited access, and insufficient transparency. And these challenges affect end users and service providers, but they don't affect them all in the same way. So individuals and small companies face particular challenges with retail cross-border payments. And for many, it's not just a question of cost and speed, but also of financial inclusion. Low-value payments, they can incur relatively high fees as a percentage of the amount sent, and they face cumbersome processes. And the unbanked and individuals and firms from fragile states are amongst those who may not be able to access payment services at all. If you go to the next slide, please. So you can see there's 5 focus areas that we are looking at in order to address these challenges and the frictions that exist. First, we look at a commitment to a joint public and private sector vision to enhance cross-border payments. Second, we look at steps to coordinate regulatory, supervisory, and oversight frameworks. We thirdly look at improvements in existing payment infrastructures. Fourthly, we increase data quality and straight-through processing by enhancing data and market practices. And fifthly, we look at exploratory work, which is more futuristic in nature, to examine the potential role that new types of payment infrastructures and arrangements, for example, central bank digital currencies and stablecoins, could play in delivering better cross-border arrangements. So as this slide illustrates, the roadmap is covering 5 focus areas through 19 building blocks. And each of these focus areas has between 3 and 5, each building block is between 3 and 5 practical milestones, which have all been set out in detail on the roadmap. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the roadmap sets out practical steps and timelines, which are designed to be ambitious, but also realistic. The actions are high level and avoid a one-size-fits-all approach. They take into account that different jurisdictions may start from different points and need, therefore, some flexibility. So involvement of the private sector, and in particular sharing insights and expertise, as well as delivering change, will be key to support practical implementation of the roadmap across the various projects. Public consultation is also important to ensure the views of the full range of stakeholders are heard and will take place at points when proposals for changes to international standards or domestic regulations are being made. You go to the next slide, please. The roadmap, it's important that it remains flexible and adapts to changing circumstances to allow adjustments to the way forward as the work responds to the constantly innovating market. Each building block and action will be taken forward by the body specified in the roadmap. The FSB will continue to act as the coordinating body through its Cross-Border Payments Coordination Group, or CPC. Progress reporting under the overall roadmap will be coordinated by the CPC, which will collaborate with international organizations such as the CPMI, but also the likes of FATF, the Basel Committee, IOSCO, the World Bank and the IMF, as well as national authorities and the private sector. So the first progress report you see here will be in October, and then it'll be in October every year therein. And this will also be the opportunity to review the actions and the timelines and to adjust as necessary and confirm the actions for the next year. Go to the final slide. So the very first step, and probably the most interesting for a lot of the people on the forum today, is building block 1, which is looking at the common cross-border payments, visions and targets. And this is basically to set the targets for meeting the challenges that the roadmap aims to address. So the FSB has set up a short-term task force, as agreed in the roadmap, to deliver the targets to address these challenges under the first building block. The targets will be quantitative, including target dates, and directly relate to the 4 challenges. The task force will conduct a public consultation in May this year, following which the final targets will be agreed and provided to the G20 for their endorsement in October. Key performance indicators will be developed, and progress against these KPIs will be monitored over time from 2022 onwards. The aim of the quantitative targets is to define the level of ambition of the roadmap and to create accountability, thereby providing a commitment mechanism to drive change. So in keeping with this, targets should be simple, high level, small in number, and end user focused. We would be interested in hearing the views of the IIF EPA forum members on what they consider to be the most important targets, which is why we've included this question here. That could be set for addressing the 4 challenges. And this forum is a useful first opportunity to hear the views on that question. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to hand over to Thomas to bring us up to date with CPMI and the building blocks there.
Thank you very much, Kieran, and I'll continue if John is fine with that. As mentioned by Kieran, the work on the roadmap has been very much a joint effort by FSB, CPMI, and other standard setting bodies and international organizations like the IMF or the World Bank. And we have developed 19 building blocks across these 5 focus areas Kieran touched upon. We can just go to slide 2. And while each of these building blocks is really in itself important, we need to acknowledge that this is very much a multidimensional problem, which needs to have a comprehensive solution that tackles all of its elements. So although, of course, building block 1, as mentioned by Kieran, will set the scene, and obviously all the other 18 building blocks are at least equally important to really contribute to a step change in cross-border payments and really contribute to the enhancements. The building blocks themselves have many interdependencies, although really we can get some improvement by tackling individual problems and particular parts of the system. We'll only get this comprehensive change and this enhancement we are looking for if we really tackle the problem comprehensively. We can move to slide 2. Kieran already mentioned that the roadmap sets out concrete actions that we will take forward, and it also outlines which international bodies will take the lead in the work, which by no means should be interpreted as the respective institution or international body will be solely responsible for implementing it, but it will be very much a joint effort across these international organizations, standard setting bodies, but especially also with the private sector. So having said this, some of the solutions can probably be put in place fairly quickly. Some of the actions in the roadmap itself are more kind of concrete and more easier to implement. Others will really require longer term efforts. And the aim is really to ensure that we make quick wins while at the same time building on the foundational elements to support the more complex and forward-looking solutions. As you can see on this slide, CPMI as such is leading or co-leading 11 out of the 19 building blocks, 3 of them jointly with the BIS Innovation Hub and the FSB respectively. I'll touch upon quickly on those building blocks we as CPMI are mainly looking at on the next slide. We can move forward. And as you will not be surprised to hear, we really are in line with our mandate, focusing mainly on improving existing and new payment infrastructures. So in roadmap terminologies would be focus area C, and if we look at forward looking and future infrastructures, focus area E. But we also look at the messaging, which is focus area D, and also have a building block under the let's say foundational layer of the focus area A, where we look at multilateral service level agreements. Having said this, it's really important to note that we'll not focus only on technical or technological issues. So although we of course know that technology matters, and there is room for improvement in the technology that we use in the public and private sector space for cross-border payments, we really need to acknowledge, and I'm coming back to the point, that this is a multidimensional problem. So we need to tackle issues around regulation, around data framework. 5 building blocks starts with increasing the use of payment versus payment mechanisms, improve also the direct access to payment systems, explore reciprocal liquidity arrangements between central banks, so-called liquidity bridges, extend and align operating hours, and also pursue interlinking of payment systems. And although it will be a long journey to implement this roadmap, we're happy to say that the first step has been taken in December last year already by issuing a letter together with the Basel Committee on payment on banking supervision, where we encourage banks and also market participants to better manage the risk involved in settling currency trades. Obviously, possibly for this audience, out of these building blocks, for example, the extension of operating hours or the access to payment systems will be very interesting building blocks, I'd assume you'll be also looking forward to get involved in. If we move to the next slide, it's about mainly the, let's say, focusing on building block 3, which is about, let's say, international schemes or multilateral service level agreements, which is building block 3, but then 14 and 15, which refers to the adoption of harmonized versions of ISO 20022 and harmonizing API protocols. And here, although the roadmap originally had the timeline of June 2021, we were able to bring forward the hackathon or tech sprint to March. So it's currently taking place this week, in fact, and should end by the end of this week. And the winners will already be announced next week at the BIS Innovation Hub Summit that is taking place in the course of next week. I hope that many of you will be able to attend also this BIS Innovation Summit. I'm happy to share registration links after the event via the colleagues from the EPA and IIF. So this hackathon itself, we were very positively surprised by the interest by the market in this hackathon. So we are really looking forward to the solutions that's going to be presented, and obviously the winning solutions will be able to showcase their proposal at this BIS Innovation Hub Summit next week. We can move on to slide 5, and it would not be a roadmap that deals with payments if we would not have CBDCs and stablecoins in it. So of course, we really consider this as being important developments when it comes to cross-border payments. However, it is also important to note that they will not necessarily be a silver bullet. So we cannot kind of lean back and wait until global stablecoins or the CBDC arrangements will be in place. We have to start building on the foundation, because also any changes we make on the foundational layer will also very likely benefit innovations like multilateral platforms, CBDCs, and also stablecoins. So it's something where we have identified them as being more exploratory in nature, in view of the fact that they are currently not necessarily on a large scale deployed globally, but still it's important to have them in mind as a possible solution going forward. We can go to the final slide, and really I would like to conclude by acknowledging that we are fully aware that private actors, including I assume all of you participating today, are working in your own ways to improve cross-border payments. And let me stress that the roadmap itself and also the building blocks the CPMI is working on is not an attempt to impose one model or one central plan on those improvements, plumbing for cross-border payments. And both the public and private sector actors will need to enhance that infrastructure. We very much would like to continue the ongoing exchange we have with the private sector. It started during the development of the roadmap, when we worked on these building blocks, where we had workshops already with private sector actors a year back from now, early March. And of course, due to the pandemic, they changed to be virtual mainly. And we also had outreach webinars starting summer last year, with 1 global and 5 regional, what we call outreach or dissemination webinars, with a total of more than 1,700 participants. The next big event will have already this week, so I really hope all of you are registered. Again, if you're not yet, scan the QR code you're seeing on the screen. You will be led to the website, where we have a 2-day event on pushing the frontier of cross-border payments with C-level participants from major banks, service infrastructure providers, as well as central banks over a 2-day event. If you have any questions, just reach out after the event to me. In anticipation of that event, we also had a questionnaire out, an industry stakeholder questionnaire, answering 11 questions across these building blocks, soliciting feedback already from market participants. Obviously, this is something where we are still interested, if you have not already done so, to answer those questions. So from that point of view, also again, if you have not yet answered the questions, which are very much related to the building blocks we just presented, I would be keen to get this input too. I'll stop short here, and really would like to acknowledge again the importance of cooperating going forward, and really looking forward to jointly address and tackle the issue of enhancing cross-border payments to make a real improvement in people's life. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, gentlemen. And that's been really useful to set the tone and give us some actual work to do already. So Kieran, thank you for your question. I know we're going to address that later. And Thomas, you've given us lots of things to get involved in the next few days, next week. So really appreciate that. All of the content there has been really rich. We're going to go straight to Lisa Robbins now. And Lisa, please, the floor is yours to tell us about your experiences and what your thoughts are to bring us forward on this.
I wanted to say a big thank you to EPA and IIF, because it's such a great idea to bring everybody together, and to the co-chairs. I was asked to talk about emerging markets, emerging trends in Asia, success measures, and challenges and barriers. And as I think Camilla and John know, I'm in the middle of a major move relocating to the US, moving a whole house, a husband, and 2 dogs. And as I speak, I hope you will all forgive me for starting with challenges, because that seems to be the biggest thing in my mind right now. And then moving on to success, which I hope that my move will also be. So a lot like our move and emerging providers alike. Like moving, it has been painful, and it will, however, yield results. I'm hoping my move will yield results as well, I have to tell you. Driving, in this case, it will be driving inclusiveness, scale, reducing costs for all players over time. So, but my view is that it is a question of time. The FSB and the CPMI roadmap is an essential catalyst to drive harmonization to the possible, thus accelerating the speed and reducing the cost. As the previous speakers have said, it's clearly outlined the issues, the focus, and the requisite building blocks. And it's just hard to challenge the necessity or the goals of the CPMI. However, to paraphrase, I think what Thomas said, it isn't a magic bullet. I think he said a silver bullet, and will require significant collaboration across borders, private and public sectors, change in culture, investment in time, not to mention budget. Many of these seem to be in short supply today, given the situation for many of the industries. There are to date several areas that need to be addressed in order to move the dial at speed and to make the roadmap a reality. I'm going to outline some of these, and then I promise you I will move on to successes, because I do believe there's a really great opportunity to make this work. But we do have to address these. The first, in my view, is digital fortresses resulting in fragmentation. One of the things I've seen over the last 15 years in Asia is a move from a very more global borders down into a situation where we see kind of the creation of digital fortresses, whether it's protectionism or due to the decline in globalization, that really have made uniformity on any level a lot more difficult to achieve. However, the flip side is that we've seen such domestic innovation in many countries that's taken off, and I think can lay the foundation and has laid the foundation for some very exciting things that can happen on the cross-border. So you have contradicting things happening at the same time. Protectionism, innovation domestically, that actually is giving rise to the ability to connect on a cross-border basis. Cyber issues, concerns about cyber risk have adversely impacted the speed of adoption, and adoption of some of the more innovative solutions. Rightful concerns about securing perimeters before launching new payment methods means that the speed of adoption has been linked to the pace at which potential cyber issues can be addressed. Interoperability, individual systems, both within companies and across banking systems, fintechs, and countries mean that instead of one system, there are many. I do think, however, that thankfully APIs, along with solutions that may provide the answer to this, like ISO 222. Competency, culture, need for technology-savvy sales, operations across organizations, and the need to for all of us to adjust to change because it's just happening so exponentially. Ironically, I do believe that COVID has been a key catalyst on a number of levels, again, making virtue out of a necessity. Finally, or not penultimately, I should say, connectivity and confusion. What systems, what companies to go with? There's just a plethora of choice out there. How to incorporate blockchain, digital currencies, CBDCs, stablecoins, et cetera. A lot of people are asking questions. And finally, is it a data farm? Are we data farming? Or are we data dumping? How do we make data useful? And I hope that the roadmap will help banks and providers and companies make some sense out of what we should be doing with all this data, because there's just so much, and yet it is meaningless unless it has a use. There is a call to action, a real call to action to find a solution to make cross-border payments more efficient, secure, fast. Very simply, there's a need for more than one game in town. And as a former banker, I can say this: correspondent banking is becoming challenged. Banks are reducing the number of correspondents or getting out of it given regulatory concerns or fines, while the sheer scale of cross-border payments is increasing, expected to reach, according to Accenture, around 30 trillion in 2022, up from 22 trillion in dollars in 2016. So we're having two, again, contradictory things. Some of the major classical providers reducing and an inherent increase in the number of transactions. One of the speakers mentioned inclusiveness, fairness, inclusion, call it what you want, giving SMEs and people of need the same large margins tab. According to Oliver Wyman, and I should say that I have become a senior advisor to Oliver Wyman on digital payments, their Digital Payments Summit in 2019, CMEs in Hong Kong stand to gain significant savings, both in staff cost, 17%, but also in reduced cash conversion cycles. About 153 days can be gained. And think about what that means to companies. Risk the need to make cross-border payments secure. Big and small issues emerging. And finally, using Hong Kong again as an example, if the significant reduction in trapped cash, lower fees, and savings in resource costs can result in approximately 7 to 10% increase in GDP. That's nothing to slough at. If nothing else, that is a call to action for any country. So Asia is a good example of the opportunity and positive direction of travel. Unlike Europe, where SEPA is the single payments network across 30 markets, countries in APAC region have evolved results in the area of regional payment system. Nonetheless, my opinion is that achieving a single payments network a la SEPA would be a utopia in this part of the world, given multiple currencies and regulatory environments, which actually make the call to action for the roadmap even more important. Real-time domestic fast payments like PayNow in Singapore, PromptPay in Thailand, do it in Malaysia, India's system, MPP in Australia, are shining examples of what can be done to drive down cost and increase speed domestically, and do set the stage for more efficient cross-border payments. And we've seen that happen. I'll get to that in a minute. We've seen exponential increase in e-commerce in APAC, particularly since the onset of COVID and the lockdowns. It's changed customer behavior, with more customers than ever buying online. And I know I was never an online buyer before, and now I buy online without regard to the origin of the e-commerce company. This has generated a proliferation of domestic and cross-border payments. Fintechs or tech fins like Alipay, Airwallex, Payoneer, and others in Asia have quickly moved to assert themselves in the field of cross-border payments. New digital banks, and I would put TransferWise, now known as Wise, are also quite active. And as we've all seen, many of us may use Wise to make payments because they are rapid and efficient. The big banks with legacy infrastructures are playing a big role, and we see a lot of really excitement in that area as well. I know my former institution has done an amazing job with straight to pay and other solutions that actually drive a speed in cross-border payments. But all of this, what I just outlined, means a lot of different systems and interoperability issues. So, success. I'll get to that. What will it look like? Well, sitting in Singapore, I take heart in the regulators' focus on developing Singapore as a digital country in all aspects. And the Monetary Authority of Singapore has been at the forefront of driving change, ranging from PayNow, which I mentioned earlier, to creating regulatory sandboxes to allow experimentation. And a lot of work has been done on cross-border, even though Singapore's fast payments is still a domestic-only solution. There's been collaboration with HKMA. And HKMA has collaborated with Bank of Thailand. There's been work on ECNY and a whole host of things that the regulators are doing to help to drive change. In India, if I look at the real-time or immediate payment network, it has native capabilities and has been live since 2018 to be able to be used to receive cross-border remittances. Australia's NPP can be cross-border, and it was tested a few years ago and again and again. There are many really good business cases and value in opening cross-border real-time business time payments. But regulators need to have a united, uniform view, and right now it seems a bit disjointed on whether fast payments should be enabled on a cross-border basis. This needs to be addressed, and it will take coordination and collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, I do believe RCEP may offer a platform to move forward, but actually I think that the best platform we have is what the G20 has done in the FSB and CPMI, which is really going to help to make this become a reality. So how fast is good? We're now talking about payments in minutes or seconds. Real time is a reality, but I do believe speed cannot be an excuse for sloppy focus on risk. Information is critical, and gathering and the use of data essential means that new skills are required as well as new gen bankers. Speed combined with an excellent focus on KYC, cyber, tech and ops risks are a winning combo. And I see the roadmap as playing an essential role in bringing this all together. There's still a lot of work to be done, as large institutions are in particular grappling with KYC as one example. SWIFT has traditionally been the cornerstone of messaging and cross-border payments and continues to play a defining role, as it has actually in Asia in a number of different areas. It has the largest number of members and has in the past set the standards. There's no reason why it can't do so in the new world, but it too needs to move fast and act not only as a provider, but an aggregator, bringing together best in class and aligning standards. And it has started to do this. Regulators will need to lean in to understand and ensure that there's a level playing field and all participants are regulated in the same way, lest we have missteps along the way that will slow down or tarnish progress, like Wirecard. Success will be an agreement on norms, standards, and quite frankly, a little bit of glue, the super glue of payments infrastructure, APIs being one key factor that makes this possible. This will become a reality. The speed of takeoff, however, will be directly correlated to the level of cooperation between private and public sectors, large and small and medium-sized corporates alike, and the industry. Like my move, it can seem insurmountable with a lot of moving parts, but it will fall into place. And I think forums like this are essential to get the discussion going about the key actions that we need to take in order to make it a reality. And I would say, I do believe there's a lot that Asia has to offer in terms both of technology, but in also learning how to cooperate together. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Lisa, and I really appreciate you doing this in the middle of your move. It was such value and content. The dichotomies of the opportunities versus the challenges, and the innovation, and I do really like that whole theme about the domestic being able to be enabled in the cross border. I think we're going to see more of that, absolutely. So thank you for that. We will dissect a lot of this over the coming meetings, and appreciate that. So now I'm going to hand over to Lars, and Lars, please, the stage is yours.
And thank you very much, and I hope that you can hear me. Yeah.
Yep,
in any case, my name is Lars. I'm the CEO of P27, the Nordic payments platform. And I think we all know the problems with the cross-border payments, so I will not go into that. And thank you very much the people from CPMI, Kieran and Thomas, from sort of kind of alluding to why we actually are discussing this. We should not forget that there are end customers out there that actually are the ones that are using our payment solutions that we provide, and that they are waiting for this to happen because they see quite a number of use cases that we need to address in order to actually, I would say, realize the full potential of instant payments. And also the COVID has shown how dependent we are on, I would say, digital platforms. And obviously this calls for us doing some, I would say, major initiatives in order to address this also for the future. Then what is then P27? And right now, Camilla, it would have been great if we were on slide number 2 here. But P27 actually stands for payments, and 27 stands for the 27 million people that are living in the Nordics. And the full vision of P27 is actually to connect everyone in the Nordics in one payments superhighway. And also provide, I would say, interoperability with the rest of the Euro area, and why not, in the end, look at, I would say, a global connectivity as well. And why does this then happen? And now we should be on slide number 3, Camilla. I'm not sure that you can see the slides, at least I cannot do that on my side. But actually what has happened in the Nordics is that we have been a little bit outside of the efforts that have been going on in the rest of Europe. And one of the background reasons for that is that we have different currencies in the Nordics. Only Finland is a Euro country. So a lot of the harmonization that has been going on in Europe, thanks to SEPA, has not really taken place in the Nordics. So we still are using many legacy payments formats. And at the same time, we are actually using, I would say, we have in the Nordics, in our relatively small region, we have more than 8-9 legacy platforms for instant payments, for batch payments and so, and all of them are very, very domestic. And of course, with that, there comes there is a scale issue, right? So each of these platforms are pretty expensive to maintain. They were built 50, 60 years ago, some of them, and obviously they don't really live up to the standards, at least the requirements of the future. At the same time, the Nordics is a very digitally advanced region where mobile payment solutions, they have 95% penetration in the general public, but they're also very domestic. So if you want to move from Sweden to Denmark and use your favorite app, that is not really possible. So there are a number of use cases that is really important to address. So all of this is kind of the background for P27, why it was started a couple of years ago. And I would say it is an industry-driven initiative with actually the ambition to fix, I would say, the infrastructure bottom up, not just top down, but actually, I would say, in the end, the ambition and the plan is to replace all existing infrastructure while connecting to state-of-the-art platforms that are out there, like ECB TIPS platform, for example. And this is something that is, you could call it a heart transplant in a way, because we do believe that if we don't fix the infrastructure bottom up, you will actually never get the true benefits. And at the same time, we are addressing some of the governance issues by having established something that is called the Nordic Payments Council, based on the blueprint of the European payments, the EPC schemes. So we have this kind of the dual governance where the schemes is owned by a separate entity, and P27 then is the company that is running the service. And that we do together with our technology partner that is MasterCard, that we selected after a rather lengthy processes or an RFP where we compared many of the different options in the market. So the characteristics of P27 is then that we are owned by the banks, in the major banks in the region. So this is a sector-driven initiative where we try to actually fix this to the benefit of everyone, while actually working together, closely together with the central banks and other regulators in delivering this. I would say that a couple of focus areas are resilience. I could see that one of the questions in the chat was actually, is it speed and efficiency, or is resilience something in itself there? My view is that, and our view is that, providing safe, secure, resilient platforms, that is just a license to operate. So in the digital economy, we really need to have digital platforms that are sort of available, day and night at the highest of performance. And then I would say also that the P27 initiative in itself is also having the characteristic of being a cost plus entity. So we are actually put on the market by the owners, but we are not profit maximizing. We are cost plus. So all benefits that you get from the scale that P27 initiative is I would say creating, it goes back to everyone, all customers and all users of the platform. We find that this is immensely important in order to actually have a credible solution that we could put to the market. Then I would say now slide number 5, there are 4 different focus areas of P27. And one is actually to provide true instant payments also cross-border. We basically create a payments area where domestic payments and cross-border payments are as easy to make or to do. By that we actually take away quite a lot of the barriers in between the countries. And obviously cross-border, there are certain type of screening that you have to do, and that actually is something that we are taking care of. And then by having one platform or close to one platform in the region, and at the same time doing the standardization, moving to an ISO 20022 format for basically end to end, we create a lot of efficiency for banks and their customers. And obviously the cost perspective that also G20 address, by getting scale, you also at the same time push cost down. And especially when you do it the way that we are addressing this, by actually replacing, or at least having the ambition to replace the existing infrastructures that are in the market. So that was number 2. And then number 3, when it comes to benefits, it's actually about security. We realized that without having the secure and resilient platform in place, we actually then we cannot operate, because 24/7 availability is really important. Then I think also to Lisa's point on the importance of real-time payments and cross-border payments in terms of driving growth, we see that now that P27 gets a little bit closer to go to market and actually providing this very, very much end-to-end perspective, large customers or large corporates, they are looking into how can they then refine and revamp their business models. That is something that is truly important, and that is really, I would say, promising for the future, because instant payments being available and being secure, then you can kind of do quite amazing things on top of that. So this is what is actually P27, and then of course we are an initiative. We are working with we have 6 owners. There are 200 banks. We have 4 central banks that we are dealing with. There are 4 FSAs. And multiple other stakeholders. I would say that we have also experienced some of the challenges in real life, addressing sort of the innovation or the transformation when it comes to moving from the old and into the new. And I would say that in the payments areas, we really feel the pain of being a little bit in the forefront. So large the G20 roadmap, for example, one area there is to address some of the regulatory issues we see. I would say we have really full support also for that, because if we want to have, I would say, transformation on the infrastructure side, we really need to look into the regulatory requirements. Then, of course, having owners, 6 banks that are very different. Actually, all of them are large, but some of them cross-border, some of them very strong domestically. You also, when you are doing this kind of initiative and realizing it, you really need to focus on why are we doing this? What is actually the benefit long-term, but also focus on delivering some short-term benefits at the same time. Because otherwise, there is, of course, a risk that infrastructure projects, they just continue and continue and continue, right? You need really to be able to show not only the long-term business case, but also show some of the quick wins. And that is something that we have addressed quite a lot in P27. And one area there that we are addressing is the area of bill payments, for example, because bill payments is super important. And if you are a large biller, you obviously, at least in the Nordics, are having a Nordic scope. And if you have 4 different billing solutions and vastly different formats, it is just very, very difficult, right? So creating this pan-Nordic bill payment solution is something that we are pretty far on that side, and also building on the request to pay standards that is a part of the Euro initiatives, and also providing a platform for interconnectivity. So there are a number of things that you really need to do and really need to think about while addressing this transformation that we are really talking about. So I will just start sort of end by just coming with a few comments, and that would be, you will find it on page 7 in my presentation. I think that let's never forget why we are doing this transformation. It is about fixing real customer pain points. We are not doing this because we are fond of infrastructure. We're not doing this because we are fond of doing big international projects. We do this to fix real customer problems. I think we must never forget that. Then I think that the collaboration in between public and private, I think that is the key to success here. Having a clear division of responsibility in between what sort of the public space are doing and what the private initiatives are kind of bringing to the table, the ones like P27 as one example. Collaboration there is absolutely important. Then learning we have also, and that is why we are in the process of acquiring the legacy infrastructure in Sweden, subject to merger clearance. Then obviously, that is that you also should deal with the existing infrastructure, because as I have alluded to, just adding a new set of rails next to the old set of rails, then you don't really get the benefits out. Instead, you are in for a very long migration period. So try to do this in a controlled way. I think that is for us the key success enabler. I said it already on the regulatory harmonization. I think that is really important that we work on. Then these type of initiatives really can have a much easier way to realization. And then there's the call to action for the public side, and this is something that we really feel from P27, and that is that CPMI, FSB, the Commission, everyone, the G20 that are really pushing this, really build on some of the innovative sort of initiatives that are already out there, support them, adjust them, so that they sort of support the roadmap. I think that is also a way to really get traction, and that is where you will find P27. We are working on realizing cross-border instant payments, and we do it day and night, and we will be live next year. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. You are more than welcome to reach out to me through LinkedIn or just an email or whatever. And the slides, I'm not sure if you could see them, but at least they will be definitely available for those of you who wish to see them. So thank you very much for your attention.
Great, thank you very much, Lars. And always great to hear the Nordic experience, leading so well on the domestic, and now bringing the cross-border together. Those challenges absolutely real, but as you say, you are ahead, so we will be learning, and that infrastructure issue absolutely key. We are a little bit behind schedule now, so I'm going to close the first question on the Slido. So thank you for those who've submitted. I will move to the second question shortly. And now I'm just going to move to Mohit. And Mohit, please, if you can give us a quick update on the Flywire experiences and what you're seeing. But I'd really like to get into the collaborative stage now shortly as well, if you can.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do that. And thanks to everybody who put together this forum. Really, really interesting to hear everybody's perspective and how we're coming together to make payments better as a whole. More importantly, I should mention, Lars, what I saw behind you is something what looked like a gaming chair. I've heard those are comfortable, so that's now that I see you're using it, I'm going to try to get one of those, probably in the color that you have. The only ones I've seen are red and orange, probably not appropriate, but now I know a good color exists. Let me introduce Flywire, then I can introduce myself. So Flywire is a Boston-based fintech payments company. We solve complex payment problems for our clients. And the key word there is for our clients. So a lot of companies solve the problem of moving smaller transactions, making smaller payments. We really like the hard problems, like moving money out of really hard countries for purposes, for specific purposes. So we like to say when other companies would run away from payment needs, we love those things, because I think that's the hard part. Company was founded 10 years ago, focused on the education remittance space, helping educational institutions receive payments from all around the world. Since then, we've expanded into healthcare payments, travel payments, B2B, and a lot of the other things. The reason is the payment infrastructure we built on our side, on top of partnerships with banks, card networks, and others, has really proven to be resilient and extendable to many different verticals. So we solve complex problems. We believe in partnerships. We believe in taking the best of the banks and the card networks and the local clearing system and putting it all together in a package that creates really wonderful experiences for our customers. So sometimes the analogy I use is Uber came about because of so many great technologies that existed, whether it was maps or smartphones or other things, and then Uber put all of that together with their experience on top and made something really phenomenal for the customers. I myself am responsible for the global payments team at Flywire. That team's responsible for the payment network that I mentioned, the monetization of the network, and that's really key. We put those things together because we want to add a ton of value for our customers, and then we want to capture that as well. It's within the same team. Any value add stuff that comes with payments, whether it's foreign exchange risk management or anything similar, falls under our team as well. So very happy to be here, excited to be here. I'm happy to share a few slides if that works. I don't know if I can take control. I know I sent over my versions pretty late. I'll blame it on tech issues that I think only Rich is aware of. But if you have them, please bring them up, or I can. Oh, there they are. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'll start by saying that I'll take a little bit of a different approach to how I present this. So think of it as anything we couldn't do with the existing payment layers or payment infrastructure, we built it through technology or through software, right? So our end goal was to add value for our clients and customers, and that's how we did that. So you may look at it and say, much of this could live within the payments layer, right? Payments used to be very different 10 years ago. They are very different now. And we've built stuff on top of what exists in payments. And as payments get smarter, faster, better, a lot of that could go into the payments layer, if that makes sense. And I'll talk a bit more about that. So we at our company believe software is really what drives value in payments, right? This is nothing against core payments, but this is more, what do you do on top, right? I can move money, but so can many other companies, so can many institutions, but what do you do on top? So for Flywire, we have very industry-specific software and billing solutions, right? So if you're solving for education, our vertical software looks completely different from healthcare or from others, right? It's really embedded in the experience of the customer. We integrate into the ERP systems of our clients to make sure when they get the payment, again, they get something more than a payment, right? They're not just getting money, they're getting a ton of information that's feeding automatically in the way that they like for their industry. And it's interesting how each industry works really differently. We obviously want rich experiences for the payers. All the payers, we focus a lot on C2B and B2B payments. The interesting thing is with the Uberization of the world, which I still call the best payment experience because it, in a way, doesn't exist. And other experiences, consumers get amazing experiences, and when they do a payment on behalf of their company, they expect something similar, right? They're not expecting the old payment system that they were used to. And last one is exception handling. We call it high-tech, human touch, global reach, and all of that. It basically means when things work well, it's all fine, but the real experience for a customer is how you handle the exceptions. 1 in 100 payments will go wrong. Something will happen there. And that's where it's important to make sure you have systems and processes in place to really create a exception handling system. So all these 4 wings of the butterfly built on top of a tech platform and a payment network we have. And I'll give you a little bit more flavor of how we think about that thing. So let me stir the pot a little bit to start talk about faster payments. Everybody talks about faster payments. We all want it to be faster, better, and Lisa made some really useful points. And hey, with faster payments comes with a higher risk of higher burden of KYC and all of that, right? We have to think about those things. In our world, we think faster payments by themselves don't do that much, and it's a bit controversial. But let me illustrate that with a couple of examples. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm saying they by themselves are not necessarily the be all and end all, right? So scenario 1, and we this is the exact problem we solve. Think of a customer or a business that's receiving thousands of cross-border payments every day, right? And let's say those are instant, right? They use SWIFT and the payment is instant. And the day they raise the invoice, the same day the customer sees the invoice, presses a button, and boom, the payment's gone. If the client has no way to know who the payment is for, where it's coming from, what is the invoice information, what product it's for, maybe there's a product suite of, you have thousands of products you're selling, it's not that useful because you cannot tell the payer or the buyer that the payment is complete. So from a buyer's perspective, it doesn't matter if the payment arrived in 1 second or an hour or 2 hours, right? Again, speed is important, but there's more to it. Let's look at a second scenario. A buyer wants to buy a product or service, and they click on a button, and the money hasn't traveled. It's not fast, it's slow, but the supplier or the seller says, you know what, you're good. However the money is coming, I trust that it's coming, right? I know it's coming, and they are able to provide that service. In a physical world, it would be a coffee, right? Starbucks doesn't get paid on the same day, but they give you the coffee. In an e-commerce transaction, it could be some other product or service. So in that case, from a buyer's perspective, the speed doesn't matter again, but because they got the product or service that they want. Now, there's always exceptions, and I know I'm overly simplifying it, but we truly believe that the speed is a part of it, and we should all do a good job of improving the speed of payments. But the bigger thing is what comes with that speed. How can we have rich information traveling with that speed, right? How do we do more for the buyer and the supplier so they have trust in the system? It's almost all about trust. I know the money is coming in 2 days, right? A check payment is not that different, meaning, hey, I know the money is coming up in 2 days, so I'm going to provide you the service, at least in most cases. Some companies may not. So this is not to take away from faster payments, but we like to call it faster payments plus plus. More needs to happen with faster payments to really add value. And you'll see that theme in everything I say. For us, it's more how do we solve for a client in a specific industry, and payments is a core part of it, obviously. But what we do on top of payments is also useful. If you could go to the next slide, please. There may be a bit of a lag. Well, if you could just scroll down just a little bit more. Perfect, thank you. So you'll see, this is how we think of the Flywire tech stack, right? Think of the network at the bottom, and you'll see something that don't sound like a network, but it is like a payments infrastructure or network at the bottom, right? There's the banking piece, taking the best of what, say, a Bank of America does or another bank does and putting it together globally. There's the card acceptance piece. There's other payment methods that we bring together. There's the corporate and regulatory piece, right? Which has to do with KYC, transaction monitoring, and a lot of those. Risk mitigation can be foreign exchange risk mitigation, downtime mitigation, and a few other things. And the last one is the monetization piece. The reason we put all of these together is these are the building blocks, what we believe, for a successful payment network, right? We want to make sure that one of our clients can access our banking side of things or card acceptance side of things with one connection. We put all of that together, and then we realized, so what? This in itself doesn't work, and that's where our platform there comes in, right? I know there's some terms here that we use internally, but it's more to say this is really the technology piece that I mentioned that comes with payments that makes payments really valuable. And I can see a lot of the stuff we do on the payment side is slowly getting built into the network layer as we do faster payments, as we increase transparency and reliability and all of that. And at the very top, you'll see the applications, the vertical software I spoke about, and this is industry specific. An education client wants something very specific for payments. A healthcare client wants something different for payments. A travel client may want something else, and for B2B clients, you may want something else. We exist because we put all of this together, and we want the bottommost layer, which is built on top of partnerships to keep getting better and better, right? Whether it's what Lars mentioned through some kind of RTP type payment methods or bill payment solutions, and those are great. As they get better, our software gets better, and we provide more value. And again, we started doing this 10 years ago, and we had to do a lot of this ourselves because of a need that we didn't see solved in the market. And I know more and more of that is being solved through the partners. If you could jump one more slide, please. All right. So for what we do, there's really 4 pillars that we look at, which you'll see that line up with some of the goals that we've been talking about. In slightly different words. So first is a single connection for global reach. What does that mean? There's so many methods, there's so many payment options around the world, so many banking systems, so many clearing systems. I mean, multiple ways of sending money from bank account A to B, even in the US. Customers eventually just want one. They don't want one method, they want one connection that enables them to get access to all of these. Now, you can do this via APIs, and all the systems can be forced to talk.
Mohit, sorry, Mohit, your line is actually your coverage is actually cutting out. I'm going to suggest that we move into the forum speaking now, if possible. It's just that we're very behind, so apologies about that. But as you say, your tables. And we have about 15 minutes really to have the chat. So really what the theme of what we're going to talk about are the questions that were covered on the survey. And if you just permit me just 1 second to just to bring up the link. Sorry, I'll just do that now. So can you see my screen? Can you see that, the link there and the results coming up?
Yep.
Okay, so just to quickly go through that. So 4 objectives for the private sector, and transparency coming just ahead of speed. 5 actions. The key is really looking at improving existing payments infrastructure and arrangements for the requirements for cross-border payment markets. And then the last one was the areas that you see most valuable for the subgroups to tackle. Regulations coming out ahead of digital identity and standardized data standards. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. Let's go into the rooms and come back here in 15 minutes and try and have a quick wrap up at the end. So thank you, everyone.